Could you explain the rationale or justification of the assertion that owning firearms is a civic virtue?
Sure. Let's talk about what I mean by civic virtue first, and then apply it to guns. I think it is a civic virtue, for example, when men take responsibility and get jobs and work hard. That's a civic virtue. A society in which that is happening is going to be more prosperous, more together. You're not going to have endemic poverty. You're not going to have homeless children. It's a civic virtue for men to work. Now, we all know men with a strong work ethic that aren't godly, right? So it's not a Holy Spirit inspired virtue, such that there are men who, by common grace, who don't love the Lord and are hard to get along with, work like the Dickens. They're just hard workers. So I don't mean virtuous in the sense of fruit of the Spirit. Nevertheless, if a lot of people are filled with the Holy Spirit in other respects, they will work hard. So men who are walking with God will be hard workers, but not everyone who's a hard worker is walking with God. So I make a distinction between civic virtues, or a common grace virtue, and a direct Holy Spirit virtue. So that would be, and I think everybody would get the principle when I said getting a job, not getting fired every three weeks, bringing a paycheck home, taking care of your family, providing for your family. That's what I mean by a civic virtue. And everybody gets the distinction between morality, or being upright or righteous, and having a virtue like that. I would put firearm ownership in that same category. When it's widespread, when a lot of people own guns, I think that society is better off. Now, just like with the illustration of a man working, we all know that there are exceptions. That, there are men who are quadriplegics. They can't take a job or whatever. And so, because it's not a tenet of morality, you're saying it's just a blessing to a culture. It's a blessing to a society when you've got a hardworking populace. Well, I think an armed society is a polite society, right? And so if you care about human life, if you care about low crime rates, if you care about such things, one of the things you should care about is a high percentage of firearm ownership. So and the reason we correlate, no, the more guns, the more crime. No, I think we're making the wrong correlation at all, entirely. Switzerland has virtually universal gun ownership and very low crime rates. Israel has very high gun ownership and people carrying weapons openly all around. And apart from terrorism, the terrorist attacks, apart from the political situation, ordinary crime is very, very low in Israel. As firearm ownership has drastically increased in the United States, the crime rates have gone down. So I'd say it's generally a good thing. It's a civic virtue. We ought not to be squeamish about it. And if you have an opportunity to buy a gun, do so. But don't be stupid. If you get a gun, you should be trained in gun safety. You should keep it in a safe place. There are awful accidents and that sort of thing that do happen that are seized upon. But generally, if you look at the broad statistics, it's better for a society to have widespread gun ownership.